Good people versus bad people. One of the biggest ideas that's been going around in today's society. Can you categorize somebody as being a good person, or can you categorize them as being a bad person? Well, let's find out in this video. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Striking Talks channel, and I'm your host, The Striker, and in this video we're going to be investigating one of the most popular ideas in society, categorizing somebody as either being a good person or a bad person. A lot of times what we're told as a child, or maybe even in adulthood, is there's actually no good or bad person. You know, it's just yin and yang. There's some good in everybody, within that good there's some bad in everybody, and within that bad there's some good. Everybody is a mixture of everything. There's no pure evil human, and there's no pure good human. But I want to investigate the viability of this principle that many of us actually hold. So first I want to talk about the benefits of this idea. The ability to not see somebody as just good or bad is very helpful when it comes to conversations. You know, a lot of the political debates that go on with the left versus the right and all sorts of other things, well, you don't want to see somebody as entirely evil or entirely good if you're debating somebody on the other side. You want to have some movability so you're willing to hear out their opinions, you're willing to hear out what they're trying to say. That way you can actually understand them, and you can maybe even change your own opinion and progress society in a forward direction. Also, if you label someone as good or bad, and you're wrong, well, that can actually get you in a lot of trouble. Because how do you know that you're actually the good person and somebody else is bad? Because from their point of view, they're probably seeing the opposite. It's all relative. So in that situation, how can you categorize somebody as just being good or bad? Which is why you have a lot of movability. You know, one of the biggest sayings that we're told is that everybody is equal, but at the same time, we consciously also rank other people. You know, if you're a job recruiter and you're trying to hire somebody, you're going to rank everybody, right? It's an untold ranking system. You're going to rank this person is valuable, this person's the next most valuable. If you're looking at celebrities, you might look at somebody who is helping everybody in this world as being very useful and very valuable to this world, while somebody who's just causing a lot of trouble and killing everybody to be unvaluable to this world. But because we're all subjective, we all have our own interpretations. While one person might seem good in one person's eyes, another person might see him as bad. So if you average out everybody's perception of everybody else, you'll probably end up with everybody being in the middle, on average. But of course, for some people, you're going to be higher up. For other people, you're going to be lower down. So everything I've said so far seems to be playing in support of the idea that there's no good or bad person in society, and we should be movable when we see someone. But at the same time, can we continue this idea forward in our society? Do we have to make a distinction and say, you are good and you are bad at times? Somebody like Hitler, a lot of people would say, is one of the worst human beings that has ever existed. And I think we can say that that's somewhat of a collective opinion by the entire society. Maybe there's some people who viewed him as good and he had some qualities, but we'd categorize him entirely as a bad person. While on the other hand, somebody like Gandhi might be viewed as a very good person in society because of his teachings in nonviolence and leading India to independence. But in the middle, of course, is where it starts to get fuzzy. Where can you categorize somebody as being a good person or a bad person? If somebody is convicted of a crime, does that mean they're a bad person, or are they still a mix of everything? If somebody is a murderer, are they a bad person or good person? Can we even criminalize people in society? Is it right to do that, or should we give them rehabilitation? You know, if you're going to criminalize someone, even if you consider their point and maybe they had a reason for doing their crime, you still in the end have to categorize them as being either a good person or a bad person. But we can also take a look at the religious interpretation of whether somebody can be categorized as a good or bad person. Well, in the Abrahamic religions, you either go to heaven or hell. So it seems like a very binary decision in the end. You're either good or you're bad. You know, there's no in-between. Even if humans start off in a very in-between-like state, or if humans at some point in their life are in-between, it's a binary decision. Or even in the Eastern religions like Hinduism and Buddhism. Either you reincarnate because you have karma, or you don't. Even when these religions have such binary decisions in the end, you're either good or you're bad, why is there so much confusion as to whether a person can be a good person or a bad person or not? Religions do say that there's good and bad in us all, but in the end, the decision seems so binary. Which can we actually consider the truth? In our society, should we continue to be more and more movable with the identity of good and bad because everybody has their own perspective and they could be going through something in life? Or somebody who's really good at the top, who's a great celebrity, might have some little flaw in their characteristic, or somebody all the way at the bottom might have some spark in their characteristic? Or should we just do a majority takes all, where if you're majority good in the eyes of the collective society, you are deemed as a good person, and if you're a majority bad, like a criminal, in the eyes of majority of society, you are labeled as a bad person just for the sake of distinction? I see this as an idea that needs to be discussed even further in our society. But on a side note, having good and bad people also introduces the concept of blame. Who do we blame for problems? Do we pin the blame on a system, or do we pin the blame on a person? By system, I mean, if somebody is a criminal, is it the criminal's fault for getting themselves into trouble, or can you point it at some system? If a lot of countries are going through war or poverty or famines, a lot of times that's the reason why some people start acting bad. So it might make sense to actually blame the system instead of blaming the person who actually did the crime. But at the same time, each person should be responsible enough, and they should be a learned person who knows the difference between right and wrong. So at the same time, you should also throw the blame on people sometimes. You know, it's your fault, you were a criminal and you got yourself into trouble. You can't keep blaming things for the problems that you caused. You can't use them as an escape tool to get away and do whatever you want. You know, it's the notion of, if your electronic breaks down, what do? You know, I've got friends who, if their electronic broke down, they would, get mad at it, yell at it, smash it. I'm sure you've seen videos of people who rage and just absolutely destroy their electronics because they're not working, or throw their phone across the room. For me, I feel like when my electronics don't work, sometimes I just cry the name of the CEO in vain. Like, gosh darn it, why can't you make better products? You know, behind every company, there is a person behind it. Behind democracy, which a lot of politicians like to always mock at, there are people who created democracy. You know, a lot of issues that exist in our government, they didn't just show up out of nowhere. You know, they didn't just magically appear one day. You know, the systems that we have today, democracy and all, they didn't just magically show up. People created these systems. When something is wrong, do you just blame the system and say it's broken? Or do you remember that someone created this system, somebody is in a position where they're in control of these systems, and they're the person that's causing all these problems? The companies aren't just causing problems. There's a person, there's a board working at those companies. You know, there's CEOs who are running these companies. There's a board of directors who are also in charge of these companies. So you just keep saying, oh, this company's doing stuff. There's people who run the companies. There's people who are in the government. There's people who are not in the government. The government isn't just some magical being that exists. So in situations like these, it might actually make sense to throw the blame on specific people instead of just saying that some institution needs to be fixed. All in all, as I said earlier, this is definitely a topic that needs to be sorted out in society. Whether you are taking a religious or an economic or a political standpoint, how do we categorize people? Good, bad, or a mix of everything? Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you subscribe, leave a like, and turn on those notifications, I'll call you a good person, and if you don't do those things, well, you're gonna be a bad person on my list. But anyways, thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have a really great day. Peace out, folks.